Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Hope you've had a fantastic holiday season. In this video today, we're going to talk about the headlines in real estate that we've been hearing across the industry for 2023. So let's get right into it. The first headline I'd like to touch upon is the great housing reset that we've seen. After a couple of years of up and down, mostly up real estate market, 2023 saw our sales slow, our inventory came to a pretty slow trickle. We did see it increase a bit regionally over the year, and then it receded again as we went into the holiday season, which is typical. But despite the slowdown that we've seen, there's been a lot of comparisons to 2008, and as we ramped up to 2022, 2023, the psychology of the market, I think people were anticipating that we were going to see 2008 again. But the difference this year was the fact that those loans that are now in place with these homeowners were underwritten with much more stringent guidelines. And so those homeowners are much more protected. This idea of delinquencies, foreclosures on the horizon, the kind of things that we were seeing in 2008 just aren't there. What does this mean for you, and what does this mean in 2024? A lot depends upon what happens with inflation and interest rates. We're going to start to see some interest rates. I'll touch upon that in a second. Hopefully loosen up, which will shake things up and create more opportunities for people to buy in the upcoming year. Despite the delinquencies being low, the demand out there and the pent-up buyer pool is still extremely high. So from a seller's standpoint, that's extremely good news, especially for those properties above $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. The next topic I'd like to talk about is this mortgage rate surge that we've been experiencing over the past, year and a half essentially. It started back in June of 2022, maybe May, and then we've seen increased interest rates over the past year and a half or so. They eclipsed 7% back summer of 2023. Most recently even went past 8%. These are numbers we hadn't seen in 10 years or so. But historically, this idea that we're going to have 2% and 3% interest rates again is just not realistic. That was a glimpse in history that I don't think we're going to see again. So a lot of people took advantage of that and are now in a position to where they don't want to do anything, which has kind of locked up our housing market. Nobody really wants to sell when they're in a 2 to 3% interest rate and now buy into something where they're going to be at a 6, 7, maybe even 8% interest rate. So the hope is in 2024, what we're going to see is some softening of the hikes that the Fed has initiated, pull back, get us into an interest rate range of between 6, 7, 7.5%. And I think that will loosen some things up. Okay, the next topic I'd like to talk about is this housing shortage, and they all tie in together, so to speak, but with the interest rate increase, combination of some exclusionary regulations that have prevented housing builds over the past several years to have slowed down, I think it's backed us into this situation where we have a housing shortage, and now you're starting to see some of that loosening up. You're starting to see some regulations, state and federally, loosen things up to create opportunities where there weren't opportunities before. You're seeing things like the ADUs happening. You're starting to see things like commercial spaces being converted into residential uses. These are some of the things that are going to help support this housing shortage that we've been experiencing. And so in 2024, what you're going to see is some continued loosening of housing regulations to support this idea of, hey, we're in a housing shortage. Where can we find new housing? And that's a really scary proposition for people in communities like we work. You know, these super valuable hillside communities where topography adds to value based on views and open space and things like that. I feel like there have been decades of underproduction and exclusionary measures in place that have prevented people from building like they need to support the growth that these areas have come to experience. And now they're in a bind and they've got to accelerate that process. And so now they're doing some things, in my opinion, a little quicker without a lot of foresight of what does this do to some of these towns and communities later down the road that aren't getting a lot of thought put in before these regulations are being implemented into towns like we live in. The next topic that we'd like to talk about, and things we've been hearing about, you probably have as well, is the insurance fallout. Insurance here in California is a huge issue. Number of companies have pulled out from California specifically and are no longer writing policies. Companies like State Farm, AIG, Allstate, Farmers, and it's making really difficult for especially new customers come in and get insurance. Even existing customers have been canceled recently due to fire regulations, construction costs, shortages. All this is happening at a time where it feels like natural disasters are occurring at a more rapid pace than they seem to have occurred in the past. So at a time where we really need it, they're pulling out. So what's in store for 2024? You're going to start to see the effects of those pullouts impact homeowners. Premiums are going to go up with the companies that do continue to carry insurance. You're also going to start to see people implement the California Fair Plan, which gives everybody in California a right to have insurance. So you can actually get it for sure. It may be a little bit more money. It may not provide the exact coverage that you're looking for, but you can definitely get insurance. 2024, what you're going to see is, again, increased premium rates for these companies. You may see some other carriers pull out of the market. I understand that their plan is that these carriers are going to come back into the market. They're just waiting for things to soften up and get back to a more comfortable, predictable level before they re-enter and start writing policies again. So ransomware attacks, wire fraud, those kinds of things are another topic that we've heard a lot about here in the real estate industry. Over the past year, 23 MLSs nationwide had been shut down by some sort of ransomware attack on the system, which shuts down our whole MLS, communication, closures, title, etc. Speaking of title was another area that was highly affected by wire fraud, ransomware attacks, and so forth. A number of the major title companies were very recently impacted, and in fact, as recent as this past week, have stopped and impacted some closings that were scheduled to occur over the Christmas holiday. So I know that's been a huge deal. In fact, we had a challenging transaction that was impacted by that for a couple of days, which we were able to get through, thankfully. But that's been a huge sensitive issue. And what happens in 2024, and what does that mean? It just means a much more heightened, elevated approach to cybersecurity, how we handle our data and how we store it. That integrates into this next topic that we've been hearing a ton about, and that's AI. And so you take the AI component of this, bring it into the ransomware, wire fraud, and the ability to impersonate different people, Chat GPT, Bard, some of these services that you're starting to hear about, and being implemented into a lot of the services that we are now using. You know, initially there was a resistance. I know I had this to, hey, I'm smart enough. I don't need AI. I don't have to do this. I'm going to be so proud that I don't use AI. And now I'm learning to find out that that's not the right approach. In fact, if I don't use AI, I think it's irresponsible. However, there's a way to do it in a much more responsible, intelligent way. And if you do it right, I think it can be used to your benefit and provide better service and better efficiencies to our customers. And we are on the surface of this technology right now. We are barely scratching it. So 2024, we're going to see much more of that evolve. We're going to understand exactly how to use it, how to implement it in our daily lives, and also how it can be used to be taking advantage of us and how to protect ourselves from it. It's a little scary and we're all pretty uncertain about what we're walking into, but I also know if used properly, it'll be a huge technology that'll help us in so many different areas. So I'm excited about it, quite honestly. Okay, another hot topic this past year that we've been hearing more about is short-term rentals, short-term lodging, Airbnbs, VRBO, ADUs play a role into this as well. It's been a couple of years where Airbnb, VRBO have infiltrated these towns and communities, and people haven't quite known how to respond to them. In some ways, it's been a great windfall for a lot of people, a huge benefit for people. And in other areas, people have, shared about the destruction of these little communities because of what Airbnb and VRBOs have done. And so there were a number of years where I don't think anybody knew how to handle them or how to respond to them, how to control them. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, we're starting to see towns and communities create regulations, create guidelines in which how these things can operate more effectively. Reading a story the other day about New York. New York is banning short-term rentals, and it's created quite a buzz, not only in the short-term rental market, but it's also increased the hotel costs around the areas as well. So it definitely, one thing certainly affects the other, and how does that play into the whole picture? And so what you're starting to see are these towns say, wait, we don't want these short-term renters coming in and taking over our communities and violating the enjoyment of these towns and communities that we've enjoyed for so long, simply because people are trying to take advantage of insane housing market numbers. And so places like Orange County, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach are particularly interested in how do you control this stuff? How do you prevent these little towns from becoming these meccas for, short-term lodging? And you're starting to see some things in place that are starting to cause the proliferation of short-term rentals from occurring. They have a negative impact on these little quiet communities, and they're starting to control them. And I think for a long time, people didn't think that they can control them or had anything to say about them. And now you're starting to see some hope in that, hey, we can control and work with these. So they definitely provide a service for people, but they've got to be done in a way to where they are complementary and conducive to the communities that they're in. So short-term rentals is a hot topic here this past year. We're going to continue to see that in 2024, and only time will tell where that goes, property rights, all that stuff. So the last topic, and probably the one that you're hearing the most about because it's happened most recently and it impacts us greedy real estate agents, is this buyer broker commission lawsuit that you've been hearing about. Couple of big companies settled prior to it going to a lawsuit. I know Coldwell Banker, our company, was one of those, and a number of other ones. But essentially, the issue was real estate companies and brokerages don't tell you how they're getting paid. They keep it close to the vest, and it's been a secret. I can tell you, in participation in the industry, that has never been the intention. We've always been very transparent about our commissions and who pays, but I can see how that can get confusing to the consumer. I think this regulation, quite frankly, will be a blessing in disguise for us as agents, as well as for the consumers. What it will do for us is it will put the onus on us to tell you, to articulate to you our value, to share with you exactly what we do as agents and why we get paid what we do. It'll just be much more communicative. I think it'll weed some agents out who don't quite frankly know what they're doing. And it's been a crazy few years, and a lot of people have made it in this business without much effort or without having much value. That's a difficult one to say, so I apologize if that was offensive to anybody, but it's true. I think we bring a lot of value. We take it for granted of all the things that we do. And now this is telling us, hey guys, tell your clients what the hell you're doing for them. Show them the value and what they're paying for and what they're getting for that and who's paying for it. And so right now, the sellers typically pay for our commission. That being said, the buyer's willingness to pay what the sellers are asking and what that ultimate price that gets arrived at has always considered buyer's fees, broker's fees. In the end of the day, it's all the same. So this just, again, requires us to be more communicative, more intelligent, and deliberate with exactly what we're doing for you. So we're going to figure out exactly how to send that message, how to deliver that to you, and how to have it work for us. But to us, it's a blessing in disguise because I think it allows us to show you exactly what we do to bring the value that we bring. All right, guys, those are the hot topics of 2023 real estate issues here and around Orange County and nationally, so to speak. There are a lot of other things certainly that come up every day, but those are the ones that we hear about over and over again over this past year. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. We really want to bring you guys some value. We would welcome your input, any things that we can do to improve, anything you'd like us to touch upon. Certainly let us know. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.